Welcome back to Movie Moshow. Today we are going to review the action thriller film, The International. If you like our content, don't forget to like and subscribe. We post multiple times daily. Spoilers ahead. Interpol agent Louis Salinger, Clive Owen, is seen standing outdoors in Berlin, Germany, as the movie opens. His companion Thomas Schumer, Ian Burfield, meets André Clement, George's bigot, across the street in a car. Clement tells Schumer about a contract the International Bank of Business and Credit, IBBC, had with China to buy missiles. Although both men smoke, Clement insists that the windows be kept closed. If he decides to go on the bank, Schumer assures him that they can defend him. Clement promises to think about it and get back to him. As Clement pulls away, Schumer gets out of the vehicle. In a phone call, Schumer expresses his excitement over the prospect of using Clement as an informant to overthrow the bank. As people pass him on their way, Schumer moves to the road. He gestures at Salinger, who is on the other side, but then abruptly grabs his arm. Schumer throws up before falling to the ground. Salinger hurries over through the crowded street but is struck in the head by a panel van's side view mirror. Salinger falls to the ground while staring into Schumer's lifeless eyes and only hearing a ringing noise. In a hospital, a doctor examines Salinger and advises that he remain the night so that staff members can keep an eye on him. Salinger asks to inspect Schumer's body but is refused. Salinger examines the body in the morgue. Salinger doesn't think Schumer had a deadly heart attack, despite the fact that it appeared that way. He examines the body in detail and enlists the coroner's assistance in turning Schumer on his chest. Salinger discovers a little lesion on his back when checking it out. He instructs the coroner to perform an extensive autopsy. In the meantime, in New York, District Attorney Eleanor Whitman, Naomi Watts, tries to get in touch with Schumer to ask how the meeting went but is unable. Salinger informs her over the phone that Schumer has passed away. Additionally, he invites her to visit Berlin so they can meet with police officers. In their meeting with the police officials, Salinger and Whitman make an effort to persuade them that Schumer was murdered. Prussic acid and cyanide were identified in trace amounts in Schumer's body, according to the autopsy report. Salinger witnessed the entire incident but failed to identify the assassin, meaning that for the poison to have killed him that rapidly, it had to have been delivered just a minute or so earlier. Salinger and his companion are questioned by the police about their visit to Berlin. Whitman states that Interpol is looking into the IBBC because it is the go-to bank for money laundering globally and also engages in other illicit activities, murder, buying weapons, etc. Whitman is connected since the IBBC's New York branch is where their nefarious transactions are primarily conducted. Everyone who attempted to testify against the bank was either killed or entirely vanished. Salinger and Whitman are instructed to return home by the police because they don't see any proof against the bank. Additionally, they let Salinger know that they have studied his dossier and caution him against making the same error he did in Scotland Yard. Whitman queries Salinger about what the cops meant by Salinger's background as they depart. Simply instructing her to study his dossier, too. Salinger returns to his Lyon home and pours ice water into the sink. He remembers Schumer's death and the assassin stumbling into him when he got out of the car as he plunges his head into the sink. When Salinger's employer visits Interpol headquarters the following day, he is shocked to see Salinger there so early. Salinger is committed to deposing the IBBC. On the same day that Schumer was killed, Clement had a bizarre accident while driving home, according to a newspaper item he obtained. Now that Clement is dead, they are without an informant. IBBC leader Jonas Skarson, Ulrich Thompson, provided the police with a statement concerning Clement. He claims that Clement was working on something at his home before he left just before he was discovered dead. Salinger discovered that Skarson had made up the time Clement was supposed to arrive at his place. In order to expose Skarson's deception and reopen the case, Salinger wants to speak with him. At a museum, the assassin, Brian F. O'Byrne, meets Wilhelm Wexler, his handler, Armin Muller-Stahl. Wexler notices that the assassin is obsessed on a specific painting and inquires as to why. The killer responds that this is so because he can see the people's misery, and agony is real. He receives a new assignment from Wexler on a USB key. The assassin initially hesitates before deciding to accept the assignment. Salinger visits the IBBC's main office to meet with Skarson. He observes Skarson conversing and walking with a group of men while he waits, among them Wexler. Salinger yells for Skarson to talk to him, but he gets no response. Martin White, Patrick Bellotti, is brought in and presented to Salinger. White, Skarson's lawyer, has also invited the lawyer for the bank to the meeting. Salinger must speak with White first before approaching Skarson. Salinger stays for the meeting despite being furious at being treated unfairly. When asked what time Clement arrived to Skarson's home, White gives the incorrect answer. Salinger confronts him and informs him that the police record he has indicates a different time, accusing him of lying. The bank's attorney looks over the report before taking out another one. He claims that Salinger's report contains inaccuracies because it was a rough draft. The official report, which he is holding, states that White's estimate of the time is accurate. Having lost, Salinger leaves the office and makes a phone call to Whitman. He claims that the report was altered and that there is nothing he can do about it. Someone runs into Salinger while they are conversing and moves toward the bank. Salinger confronts the person who ran into him because he panics and fears that he has also been poisoned. It turns out to be a good-hearted woman who believes Salinger is insane. Salinger pays his boss a visit at home and implores him to go. Salinger enters the home after his boss rejects him. He destroys his boss's phone and removes a wiretap that was placed therein. When they get outside, Salinger reveals that his phone also included a wiretap. They had been tapped by the bank, which is why they prepared a new report before Salinger arrived. Whitman tries to speak with Clement's widow over the phone and ask her about her husband, but she hangs up. She calls her cell phone number and leaves a message for her, inviting her to call. The widow answers the phone and claims she has no idea why her husband was killed. Once more hanging up, she texts Whitman's phone instead. The widow instructs Whitman to speak with Umberto Calvini, Luca Barbareschi, after they exchange back and forth responses. At this point, we also witness the assassin practicing his shooting at a target that is some distance away. The bullet shell is then carefully placed into a container to be saved for later. Calvini is the head of a firm that produces weapons, according to Salinger's investigation of him. He is a candidate for prime minister in Italy as well. Traveling to Milan, Salinger and Whitman quiz him about Clement and the IBBC. While this is happening, we witness a few conversations that lead to the delivery of a box to a senior officer in uniform. At a political rally where Calvini will be speaking, Salinger and Whitman make an appearance. To meet Calvini, they go into a building close by. Whitman claims that while she was waiting, she studied Salinger's file and learned the events that led him to leave Scotland Yard and join Interpol. He had a dependable informant in the IBBC who could assist him bring them down, but the IBBC tracked down and discredited him. Then they brought about the vehicle tragedy that killed the informant and his family. Everyone dismissed Salinger, and the case was forgotten. When they see Calvini, he is open and tells them that the IBBC has bought a lot of missiles from China to sell to another nation. He was the only person in the world who could sell them, so they came to him to purchase guidance systems. Calvini, however, rejected them and wouldn't work with them. In the IBBC, Clement was his friend. Salinger and Whitman are forewarned by Calvini that the IBBC rule over everyone and everything. They provide nations with weaponry to put an end to hostilities, which forces them to keep tabs on the dead in conflict areas. Following the demonstration, he makes a commitment to speak with them further. Calvini leaves his house to join the protest. While they wait, Salinger, Whitman, and an Italian detective decide to enjoy a drink at the tavern next door. We observe a hitman setting up a rifle and shooting for the stage of a nearby hotel. As Calvini begins to speak, the hitman starts a countdown that lasts for 60 seconds. He attempts to shoot Calvini's head after the minute is up but misses owing to a quick movement. A second shot is then immediately fired, striking Calvini in the head. Given that he did not fire the second shot, the hitman is perplexed. Everyone flees as the throng panics. The earlier mentioned uniformed officer bursts into the hitman's hotel room and pelts him with gunfire. The cop kills the hitman by shooting him in the head after his teammates have left. He then places the assassin's earlier fired shell on the ground. Whitman and the officer follow Salinger as he flees toward the motel. Thank you for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe.